Micaiah, son of Imlah, was the one prophet King Ahab did not want to hear. Hundreds of other prophets were ready to stand before the king and promise him success.
The kingdom flourishes under your just rule.
Micaiah was different. He would not shape his message to please the throne. Whenever the word of the Lord warned of danger,
The Lord has decreed it. You must heed this warning.
he spoke the warning exactly as it came. Because of that, Ahab hated him. For 3 years, there had been no war between Israel and Syria. Yet the peace had left one matter unsettled. Ramoth-Gilead remained under Syrian control, even though the city belonged to Israel. Ahab wanted to take it back, but he needed another army to stand beside his own. In the 3rd year of peace, Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, came to Samaria to visit Ahab. The two kings spoke about Ramoth-Gilead, and Ahab asked Jehoshaphat to join him in battle. Jehoshaphat agreed, but he would not send his soldiers forward until they first asked the Lord what they should do. Ahab gathered about 400 prophets. They appeared before the kings and gave one united answer. Ahab should march against Ramoth-Gilead. The battle would end in victory, and the city would fall into his hands. The answer pleased Ahab, but Jehoshaphat was not convinced. 400 voices had spoken, yet he still asked whether there was another prophet of the Lord in Israel. Only then did Ahab mention Micaiah. He admitted that Micaiah could ask the Lord for them, but he also admitted that he hated him. In Ahab's eyes,
He prophesies nothing but evil. Let not the king say so. We must hear the word of the Lord.
Jehoshaphat refused to accept hatred as a reason to silence a prophet, so an officer was ordered to bring Micaiah at once. While the officer hurried away, the two kings prepared to receive the final answer. Wearing their royal robes, they sat upon their thrones in the open space beside the gate of Samaria. Before the thrones stood the 400 prophets, still promising that Ahab would win. One of them, Zedekiah, son of Chenaanah, had made 2 horns from iron. He raised them before the kings and pushed them through the air like weapons. The iron horns were meant to show what Ahab would do to Syria. According to Zedekiah, Israel would drive into the Syrian army and destroy it completely. The other prophets repeated the same promise. Their voices spread through the gate until hundreds of men sounded like one. Every word pushed Ahab toward the battle. Every voice told him that victory was waiting at Ramoth-Gilead. Micaiah was the only known prophet missing from the gathering. Ahab had called the men whose answer he expected, while leaving out the man whose answer he feared. If Jehoshaphat had not asked for another prophet, the armies might have marched without Micaiah ever being brought before the kings. But now an officer was moving through Samaria to find him, and the voice Ahab had tried to avoid was being summoned to the gate. Away from the city gate, the officer found Micaiah and began bringing him toward the kings. As they walked, he warned Micaiah about the gathering ahead. All the prophets had agreed. All of them had promised success. The officer urged Micaiah to protect himself by giving Ahab the same answer. Micaiah continued toward the city. "As surely as the Lord lives," he said, "I will speak only what the Lord tells me." The officer's warning did not slow him. 2 kings and 400 prophets waited ahead, but Micaiah kept walking toward them. Their number could not change the message he had been given. The noise from the prophets grew louder as Micaiah approached Samaria. When he entered the gate, people moved aside and watched him pass. Ahead of him were 2 kings wearing royal robes. Around them stood hundreds of prophets. Ahab asked him whether Israel should attack Ramoth-Gilead or remain at home. At first, Micaiah gave the king the answer he wanted. He told Ahab to go and succeed because the city would be delivered into his hand. But the words did not sound like a true promise. Ahab recognized that Micaiah was not speaking plainly. He demanded the truth in the name of the Lord. Then Micaiah's answer changed. "I saw all Israel scattered across the hills like sheep without a shepherd," he said. And the Lord said, "These people have no master. Let each man return to his home in peace." The message fell heavily over the gate. Micaiah had not described an army celebrating around its victorious king. He had seen soldiers scattered across the hills. They would return to their homes, but the man who led them into battle would not return with them. Ahab immediately turned to Jehoshaphat. Micaiah's warning, he said, proved why he hated him. Once again, the prophet had spoken of disaster instead of success. But Micaiah had not finished. Standing alone before the kings, he began to describe the vision the Lord had shown him. He had seen far beyond the gate of Samaria and far above the thrones of men. He had seen the Lord seated upon his throne. In the vision, Micaiah was no longer surrounded by the crowded streets of Samaria. Before him was the throne of the Lord. The heavenly host filled the space around it, standing in their places and waiting. The earthly court had been loud with men repeating one another, but the heavenly court waited upon the voice of God. No royal robes could impress anyone there. No iron horns could control what happened there. The heavenly host stood before the throne as the Lord spoke about Ahab and the battle he wanted to fight. The Lord asked who would persuade Ahab to march against Ramoth-Gilead and fall there. Different answers were given. Then one spirit stepped forward and offered to persuade him by becoming a lying spirit in the mouths of his prophets. The spirit would fill their mouths with promises of victory and lead Ahab toward the place where he would die. The Lord said that the plan would succeed. The vision explained everything happening at the city gate. The 400 prophets were not proof that Ahab would win. Their complete agreement was the trap drawing him toward battle. Their confidence did not change the warning. Their number did not change the truth. Micaiah looked toward the men surrounding him and told Ahab that a lying spirit was speaking through his prophets. Then Zedekiah moved. He stepped away from the other prophets, crossed the open space, and struck Micaiah across the cheek. In front of both kings and the watching crowd, Zedekiah demanded to know how the Spirit of the Lord could have left him to speak through Micaiah. Micaiah did not strike him back. He answered that a day would come when Zedekiah would run into a hidden room and try to hide. On that day, after the promised victory had become disaster, Zedekiah would know which prophet had spoken the truth. Ahab refused to hear any more. Instead of changing his plans, he ordered his guards to seize Micaiah. They were to take him to Ammon, the governor of the city, and Joash, the king's son. Micaiah would be locked in prison and kept alive with only a little bread and water. Ahab intended to deal with him after returning safely from Ramoth-Gilead. The guards took hold of Micaiah and pulled him away from the thrones. Before they could remove him from the gate, Micaiah turned back toward Ahab. "If you return safely," he called out, "then the Lord has not spoken through me." He raised his voice again and called on the whole gathering to listen. The warning had now been spoken before both kings, all the prophets, and everyone watching at the gate. Then the guards carried him away. Micaiah was placed under guard and given the small amount of bread and water ordered by the king. Outside the prison, Ahab chose the promise of 400 prophets over the warning of one. Israel and Judah prepared for war. The gate that had been filled with prophecy was soon filled with the movement of soldiers. Weapons were gathered, horses were prepared, and chariots were brought into position. The armies marched north toward Ramoth-Gilead. Rows of soldiers crossed the land behind horses and chariots. Micaiah could not see them leave from behind the prison walls, but every step carried Ahab closer to the hills the prophet had seen. Before the battle, Ahab decided to hide his identity. He entered the field dressed like an ordinary soldier, while Jehoshaphat continued wearing his royal robes. Ahab could hide his crown, his clothing, and every mark of his position. but his disguise could not erase the word Micaiah had spoken. The king of Syria had ordered his 32 chariot commanders to search for Ahab and fight no one else. When the battle began, the commanders looked across the field and saw Jehoshaphat's royal clothing. Believing he was Ahab, they drove directly toward him. The Syrian chariots closed around Jehoshaphat. He cried out, and the Lord helped him. The commanders looked again and realized that they were chasing the wrong king. They turned away, leaving Jehoshaphat alive. Elsewhere on the field, Ahab remained hidden among the ordinary soldiers. The Syrian commanders had not found him. No enemy warrior appeared to know where he was. Then a Syrian soldier raised his bow. He did not aim at a king. He simply pulled back the string and released an arrow toward the army of Israel. The arrow flew across the battlefield and struck Ahab in the narrow opening between two pieces of his armor. His disguise had hidden his identity, but it had not protected him. The arrow entered his body, and blood began flowing from the wound. Ahab ordered his chariot driver to turn and carry him out of the battle. But the fighting grew stronger, and the king remained on the field. He was held upright in his chariot while his blood ran down and gathered beneath him. Hour after hour, the battle continued. Ahab's strength slowly left him. As the sun went down over Ramoth-Gilead, the king died in his chariot. At sunset, a cry spread through the Israelite army, telling every soldier to return to his own city and his own land. The men left the battlefield and scattered across the hills. Their king was dead. They were exactly what Micaiah had seen, sheep without a shepherd, returning home without their master. Ahab's body was carried back to Samaria and buried. His bloody chariot was washed beside a pool in the city. As the blood flowed out with the water, dogs came and licked it, according to the word the Lord had spoken. The king had ordered Micaiah to remain on bread and water until he returned safely. But the prison door would never open for Ahab's return. The king who hated Micaiah was dead. The army had scattered. The iron horns had proved empty, and the voices of 400 prophets had failed. Micaiah had stood alone at the gate of Samaria, but he had not changed his message. He had spoken of a shepherd who would not return, and now Israel had returned without its king. Everything Micaiah had seen before the throne of heaven had happened upon the earth.
If you enjoyed watching this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.